Welcome to This Explainer. You know, we hear the word inflation tossed around on the news literally every day. But today, we're going to totally shift how you think about it. We're moving away from just saying, prices are getting higher, and actually diving into what's happening to the fundamental purchasing power of your money. Because I promise you, once you get this, the way you look at your salary, your savings, and your whole financial future, it's going to completely change.
Okay, let's start with a really simple scenario. Imagine walking into your local grocery store today, loading up a basket with exactly $100 worth of food, and checking out. Now, pretend you hop into a time machine, travel back exactly 20 years, and buy that exact same basket. Well, you'd immediately notice it cost significantly less back then, right? And it's not just groceries. Houses, cars, healthcare. Over time, prices just tend to rise. That everyday reality, that is inflation. And it impacts literally every single financial decision you're ever going to make.
So here's our agenda for today. We'll start with the basics of inflation, move into understanding purchasing power, and then look at why prices actually rise. After that, we'll ask, is all inflation bad? Explore exactly how it affects you, and wrap up with the central bank's role.
All right, part one, the basics of inflation. Let's lay down a super clear foundation. Inflation is simply the general increase in prices over time across an economy. Now, the key word there is general. It doesn't mean every single price goes up equally at the exact same time. Like a specific piece of tech might actually get cheaper over the years. But inflation refers to that broad, overall upward trend across the entire economy.
Moving on to part two, understanding purchasing power.
To really grasp why inflation matters, we have to look at what it actually does to the cash in your pocket. This is your purchasing power, which is literally just how many actual goods and services your money can buy in the real world. Because, inflation isn't about your money physically shrinking. A $10 bill is still a $10 bill. It's all about the changing relationship between your money and what that money can actually get you.
This slide brilliantly illustrates what I like to call the silent erosion of wealth. Check this out. Say you have a crisp $100 bill. Today, that buys you 10 items priced at $10 each. But let's say a year goes by, and inflation pushes the price of those items up to $12 each. Now that exact same $100 bill only buys you 8 items. Your bank balance hasn't dropped a single cent, but your purchasing power has fallen. Your money is just doing less work for you than it did before.
Which brings us to part three. Why do prices rise?
So you might be wondering, why do prices go up at all? Well, economies are massive and complex, but inflation usually comes down to three main drivers. First, demand grows faster than supply. Think about a town with 1,000 people who all want to buy a house, but there are only 100 houses. That intense competition naturally drives prices up. Second, production costs rise. If global fuel prices spike, shipping gets expensive, and businesses pass those extra costs right onto us, the consumers. And third, the money supply itself. If central banks pump money into the economy way faster than goods are being produced, prices will eventually rise to absorb that extra cash. Usually, you've got a mix of all three happening at once.
Part four, is all inflation bad?
Now, here's a most people don't realize moment. It's super common to assume that all inflation is terrible, and we should aim for zero. But actually, many central banks specifically target a small positive inflation rate, usually right around 2%. Why on earth would they want prices to go up? Well, moderate, predictable inflation actually encourages spending. If you know a car is going to be slightly more expensive next year, you're more likely to just buy it today. And that keeps businesses running, keeps people employed, and keeps the whole economy humming.
So think of inflation like the temperature of the economy. Low inflation, in that 1 to 3% range, is nice and stable. Yes, purchasing power declines, but it happens gradually, so planning is easy. Moderate inflation is a bit warmer, but we can still adapt to it. But then you hit high inflation, or the absolute extreme, hyperinflation. That's when prices skyrocket and uncertainty is everywhere. During hyperinflation, money loses value so incredibly fast that people literally rush to spend their paychecks the minute they get them. It destroys all confidence in the currency. So the goal is stability, not necessarily zero inflation.
Let's get personal with part five, how inflation affects you.
This right here is absolutely crucial to understand for your own career and life, the difference between nominal and real income. It perfectly explains why someone might get a nice 3% raise at work but still feel completely financially squeezed. Just look at the math. If your nominal income, the actual dollar amount in your paycheck, goes up by 3%, but the inflation rate is 5%, well, prices went up faster than your pay.
So your real income, your actual purchasing power, went negative. You're making more money on paper, but you are functionally poor.
And this means inflation impacts different people in very different ways. It silently punishes anyone sitting on large amounts of cash because that savings just loses purchasing power over time. For investors, it means you have to earn more than the inflation rate just to gain real value. If you make 8% in the stock market, but inflation is 5%, your real gain is only 3%. But you know what's interesting? It can actually benefit borrowers. If you have a fixed-rate mortgage and your income rises with inflation over time, that fixed debt becomes easier to pay off. Plus, remember that your personal inflation rate depends entirely on what you buy. If housing prices double, but you already own your home, you're not going to feel that pinch the same way a first-time renter will.
Let's put this into a really practical scenario. Imagine two friends. Friend 1 decides to play it quote-unquote safe and hides $10,000 in cash under the mattress for 20 years. Friend 2 invests that same amount in assets designed to grow faster than inflation. Now, fast forward 20 years. Both friends still have money, but friend 2, the investor, has preserved and likely grown their purchasing power. Friend 1, the cash saver, has lost a massive chunk of what that $10,000 can actually buy in the real world. So when it comes to finance, sometimes playing it perfectly safe in cash is literally the riskiest thing you can do to your wealth.
Finally, Part 6, the central bank's role.
Because inflation impacts literally everything from your salary to your savings, someone has to manage it. And that's why central banks pay incredibly close attention here. Think about it. Fiat money only works because we trust it. Having a stable purchasing power maintains that trust and keeps economic confidence high. If inflation gets too hot, businesses can't plan, consumers start to panic, and the whole economy suffers. To stop that, central banks step in to manage things, primarily by adjusting interest rates, which directly influences how much people borrow and spend.
So as we've seen today, personal finance isn't just about how much money you earn, it's about how much purchasing power you actually keep. Understanding inflation is really just step 1. To truly master this, you have to understand the lever that controls it all, which leaves us with a massive question. How exactly do interest rates influence inflation and basically control the entire economy? Well, we're going to explore that very tool in our next explainer. Until then, keep a close eye on your purchasing power, and thanks so much for joining me.